Forget all the nasty things I ever said about you, Kit.
I'm afraid I already have. I guess this is goodbye. Michael, take care of yourself.
When I was still Michael Vaughn. What am I telling you this for? Huh? You already know what happened. But maybe you'll know all of it. When I regained consciousness a couple days later, I could still see that muzzle flash in my face. Couldn't get it out of my mind. For months after that, every time somebody lit a match or a car headlights went by in my face, I'd flinch.
How did you overcome it, Michael?
I didn't. It overcame itself. All I did was refuse to give into it and do what I knew had to be done. You ready?
Yes, Michael, I am. And Michael, thanks.
Knight Rider, a shadowy flight into the dangerous world of a man who does not exist. When I was younger, I loved Knight Rider, to the extent where there was even a point when I'd say I liked Knight Rider better than Herbie. I still love Knight Rider, but only recently did I return to it after alienating it for 3 years. Well, there are quite a few things I like about the show. My favorite thing about the show by far was KITT. But interestingly, while there are approximately 90 episodes of Knight Rider, there are very few episodes focused on KITT, who's supposed to be the second main character. And also, I want to clarify, this video I'm going to be ranking every KITT episode, not every Knight Rider episode. Because let's be real, I think that would take me at least 37 hours. I also want to clarify that I still love these episodes I'll be mentioning. There's just some that I like more than others. So, let's get started. Real quick, I just want to explain what I feel like a KITT episode is. My personal opinion of a KITT episode is an episode where KITT is somehow one of, if not the main focus. I will be mentioning 5 total episodes on this list, however, 2 of them are more like honorable mentions since some of these episodes were indeed focused on KITT, but only for a short period of time if that makes any sense. Number 5. Lost Night. I'm gonna be honest, it kinda pains me to put Lost Night this low on the list. Lost Night was one of my favorite episodes back in the day, but rewatching it, I was actually a little disappointed that it wasn't even close to being as good as I remember it. Now, I don't think it's necessarily a bad episode. It's pretty good, it just didn't meet my expectations. This is basically the episode. KITT and Michael are taking the afternoon off while Devin and Bonnie are watching a building being leveled. But unfortunately, 2 bad guys come and steal a bunch of the extremely powerful explosives that are being used to level the building, and Devin calls Michael to go stop them. So Michael and KITT are getting on the bad guys, who are now throwing explosives at them for some reason, but then one of the explosives hits some power lines, which land on KITT and cause him to short circuit? I don't know anything about computers. Basically, KITT got electrocuted really bad and it made him lose most of his memory. So then Michael steps out of KITT, even though that's probably the only thing you wouldn't want to do when your car is severely electrocuted. And Michael tells KITT to stay where he is while he looks for help, but KITT's just like, bruh, I don't know who you are. Nah, I'm out. And KITT disappears into the hills. So a kid named Doug saw the bad guys, and the bad guys saw him, so he hides. Meanwhile, Michael's at a hospital for injuries that actually wouldn't occur if you were just sitting in a car while it's being electrocuted unless you touch some metal. Also, I love how Bonnie literally has the audacity to be like, Michael, how could you? KITT's out there damaged and all alone. As if it's, like, his fault or something. So Michael heads out into the hills and finds Doug and asks him if he saw the bad guys or a black T-top. And Doug claims he didn't see anything and runs off. A little later, Doug is walking around minding his own business until KITT starts following him. Originally, Doug told KITT to get lost, but after KITT asks for help, he decides to hide him in a cave. Eventually, Doug tells KITT he has to go home, but then the bad guys see him, and KITT decides to help Doug escape from them. Michael is here too, but he's in a Jeep. And of course, because KITT is OP, he's able to get away pretty easy. So apparently the bad guys are planning to sell the explosives to this guy, even though they've probably wasted all of them at this point. And Michael apparently has like a microchip or something that's supposed to restore KITT's memory. The catch is, you have to install it via KITT's undercarriage, and he doesn't remember who Michael is, so that sucks. Also, Doug's been kidnapped, and the bad guys plan to blow him up along with a dam. Why? I don't know. And Michael is able to restore KITT's memory, and the two go off to save Doug, and Doug gives the bad guys a citizen's arrest. And that's basically the whole episode, but like, I don't know, something about this episode just feels weird. Yes, one of the main focuses is on KITT, but I just feel like he doesn't feel important in this episode at all. And once again, it's not necessarily a bad episode, it's just definitely not the best episode. Also, why does Michael act like a nutjob in this? First of all, bro, what is that shirt? Second, why would you step out of your car after it got electrocuted and then abandon it when it's a literal car and if you need to find help, why don't you try to drive it somewhere? Oh my word. Also, why are the bad guys so dumb too? If you're selling dynamite to someone, why are you using it to blow up a dam? I might have missed something in the episode, but seriously, what? And why do they want to kill Doug? He didn't even see anything as far as they know. Long story short, I don't think Lost Night is a bad episode, but I am putting it at the bottom of the list for these reasons. Number 4, Chariot of Gold.
Hey there, y'all skis. Editing Sandy here. So I didn't realize that there are barely any clips / screenshots from a lot of these episodes. So if you don't see any clips and screenshots from any of the episodes, don't worry, I'm just going to be doing sketches in the background. Really sorry about that. I had no idea.
I won't be talking about Chariot of Gold for very long, since I only want to mention a short part of it. Just the part when Bonnie reprograms KITT to basically turn on Michael temporarily. Don't get me wrong, Chariot of Gold is an amazing episode, it's just not really a KITT episode, and that's why it's in number 4. Now, to every other Knight Rider fan out there, yes, I'm well aware that Chariot of Gold is not really meant to be a KITT episode, but technically he is a main focus and that's why it's on the list in the first place. Basically, there's this group of crazy smart people called Helios and they wanted Bonnie so they could use KITT to help them with an underground city or something. Long story short, they are able to get their hands on KITT and even command him to kill Michael, but he eventually snaps out of it and turns good again. Now, this episode is an honorable mention, but it just seemed kind of wrong to not include it, you know what I mean? Number 3, Soul Survivor. Soul Survivor felt a tiny bit more on the honorable mention side, but once again, it felt wrong not to include it. And technically, KITT is the main focus of the episode, just only for a little bit. The rest of it's focused on KITT's body. Bruh. Okay, that sounded really weird. Let me explain. A lady is on the side of the road because her car broke down and Michael stops to help. He then takes her to her house and she puts on, like, this music that hypnotizes him or something. So while Michael is occupied, the lady and this kid hack KITT and take out a CPU and put it in a cardboard box. Michael is able to escape the house and return to the Foundation, and so him and Devin go to find KITT, and they're pretty shocked to see him, well, what's left of him in a box. So it turns out that the kid who stole KITT is crazy good with computers, and the lady is trying to get him to use KITT's body to steal a bunch of expensive paintings. Meanwhile, KITT's been turned into a portable TV, which he very understandably really hated. So KITT and Michael go off to find, KITT, and after they do, the kid is forced into trying to kill them. However, he's unsuccessful, the lady goes to jail, and KITT gets his body back. And by the way, I personally feel like that this episode has one of the best endings of any Knight Rider episode. KITT and Michael joyriding, and then KITT does this insane turbo boost, and the episode ends. And that is how you end a Knight Rider episode. Number 2, Killer KITT. I'm just gonna say it right out of the gate. I absolutely love Killer KITT. Killer KITT was always my favorite episode back in the day. And actually, it still is one of my favorites. I actually feel like it's the much better version of Lost Night. I guess there's only a few main things that are similar though. KITT's memory being tampered with and running away. I just feel like these themes were managed a lot better in Killer KITT than Lost Night, though. Here's the episode. Oh, and just a quick warning, I found like 0 screenshots and clips from this, so I'll just be showing some doodles in the background, alright? Sorry. Bonnie has just made some adjustments to KITT and she sends Michael to test them out. Almost immediately after they start, though, some bad guys shoot a rocket launcher at KITT. So, of course, KITT and Michael go to chase them down. While Michael's trying to get the bad guys, Bonnie comes over to KITT and puts another microchip or something in him, and she tells KITT that it's supposed to better his performance. The bad guys end up getting away for the time being, but almost immediately, Michael starts noticing something about KITT's a little off. At first, it was just a couple of basic functions not working, so Michael goes back to the semi just in case to tell Bonnie, but she's not there, so Michael decides to go after the bad guys anyway because he's thinking, it's just a couple of basic functions, that's okay. However, at this point, instead of KITT just having some minor bugs and glitches, he starts becoming super irritable and hostile almost. Well, it turns out Bonnie didn't put a microchip to better KITT's performance, and in fact, it wasn't even Bonnie at all. It was Diane Darcy. But seriously though, she actually played Diane Darcy in the 82. And that microchip, it was supposed to make KITT slowly turn against Michael and at the right moment kill him. However, that's not why the bad guy wants KITT. The bad guy was one guy who tried to plan out the designs of KITT's systems, but ultimately left the project entirely because he felt like he wasn't given enough credit. He wants to use KITT basically to kill a bunch of people at a convention planned out by Flag so they'll be blamed for the loss of lives. So Michael calls Bonnie at a payphone because apparently KITT's still in a really bad mood, and so Bonnie tries to bring KITT back, but the microchip has now fully overridden KITT's systems and he even tries to kill Michael. KITT is unsuccessful, but thankfully he doesn't know that, so he goes back to the evil lair, in this case an old RV or something. Michael soon finds out the bad guy's real plan, and he gets the microchip that's, once again, supposed to restore his memory. Eventually, Michael is able to get in KITT and take the bad microchip out and put the new one in right before KITT kills everybody. And by the way, I love how KITT's immediate reaction is like, "Michael, I just had a horrible nightmare." And the episode ends with everyone teasing KITT about saying ain't, and according to KITT, saying ain't is unforgivable. And they also tease him about playing some of his least favorite types of music when he was being hacked. Another great way to end a Knight Rider episode. I feel like Killer KITT is also notable for this being the only episode, in my opinion at least, to be set up as a KITT episode. Because once again, in my opinion, I feel like every other KITT episode just seems like a regular Knight Rider episode at the beginning, and then something happens to change the direction of the plot entirely. Not that either thing is necessarily good or bad, it's just something I felt like I needed to mention. But as much as I love Killer KITT, there's still one episode that I love more. In my opinion, it's definitely the best KITT episode, but not only that, the best Knight Rider episode. Period. And yes, I know that's really high praise, but I feel like it's 100% true. The best KITT episode / best Knight Rider episode is Junkyard Dog. Why? Because it shows how much KITT has grown as a character, how much Michael and KITT have grown as friends, and how much Michael has grown as a character. If you can have all that in a 45-minute episode, and all of it's executed absolutely beautifully, then that is pretty darn amazing. First of all, the opening's great. We get a good look at the wildlife, and then just like a big ugly chemical waste truck starts dumping toxic waste all over the road, and I think it sets a pretty good vibe. And apparently it's Michael's job to get proof the person dumping the toxic waste is who he thinks it is. Then Michael sees this lady on the side of the road, and decides to stop to help her, and it turns out this lady is after the bad guy too. That night, Michael and KITT go to the toxic waste dump to investigate, but unfortunately, KITT doesn't make it out alive. Well, at least not exactly. KITT is dumped into the toxic waste pit, and all of his circuits and electronics are gone except for a few shreds of his memory banks. However, Michael demands that KITT be rebuilt. So the original team who'd assembled KITT is brought back to fix him up, and KITT is even turned back into a TV. The poor guy can't even catch a break, can he? So Michael talks to KITT after he's put in the TV, and Michael is convinced that something's wrong with him. Michael and the lady are also making good progress with getting evidence to prosecute the bad guy too. And after they come back, it seems like KITT's doing a lot better. First of all, he's a car again, and second, he seems a lot more like his old self. At first, anyway. And he even asks Michael to be there for his test, to which Michael responds,
"I wouldn't miss it for the world."
Ta-da!
Did I mention yet this is the best episode of Knight Rider? Despite what it seemed like, KITT is not, in fact, his old self. And it became obvious to Michael and the scientists pretty quickly. And whatever's wrong with KITT seems to go way beyond a technical or mechanical issue. According to one of the scientists,
I was afraid of that.
What?
He's been hurt. It's not surprising that he doesn't want to be hurt again.
younger me didn't really understand, but older me, holy crap, it hit like a ton of bricks. I think what we're supposed to believe is drowning in that acid pit did more than physically destroy KITT, but I think it was more of a reality check where he realized his mortality and that he can't always be saved, even by Michael. So therefore, he was afraid of being put in the position where he might be completely helpless again. And I think that's what makes this episode hit way harder than any other, because everything KITT is going through is completely normal. You feel really bad for KITT because if you were in a similar situation, you'd probably act the exact same way too. I know I would. Despite it being clear that KITT isn't doing too well, KITT tries his best to seem like his older self. But of course, Michael and everyone else sees right through him. But Michael says that KITT's gonna run the test over and over until he gets it perfect. So we're given another montage of KITT getting a couple of additional repairs, and even being painted black again. And on his next test, he does really well. Until he doesn't. KITT was supposed to crash through a wall, but for whatever reason, he slams on the brakes. Then the lady comes over and says that there's an arsonist that's about to burn the toxic waste site down. And Michael decides to take KITT against Bonnie and even KITT's own advice. So they arrive at the waste dump, recording the things the bad guy is saying, and it's still pretty obvious KITT is still afraid. So Michael gives him an amazing pep talk, So amazing, in fact, I even included it in my edit at the beginning of the video. And after that, KITT's ready to be KITT again. Long story short, they stop the bad guy, and the lady gets pictures in the newspaper that she supposedly took, but I think it was pretty obvious she didn't take them since she was standing at the other side of the scene, but whatever. This episode, oh my word, dude. Seriously. Name a Knight Rider episode that goes harder than Junkyard Dog. Just about everything about this episode is absolute peak. But before we wrap up this video, there's a few more things I want to say about this episode. The scene where KITT is dropped into the acid puddle and having KITT call out to Michael for help was chilling and horrifying, but amazing at the same time. Because I feel like it just had such a huge impact on the scene. Imagine KITT was totally silent. I feel like the scene would have felt a lot less dramatic, you know? Also, the scene where they pull what's left of KITT out was also chilling but amazing. Why? Because this scene was totally silent. The actors and the actresses were just standing around looking like they're about to cry, and that worked perfectly. And need I even mention the part when Michael sticks his head through KITT's window and says, "KITT," and then there's just absolutely nothing left. Also, regarding KITT's final test, I've seen a lot of people say it made no sense that Michael was driving if it was supposed to be a test for KITT, and I think I have a theory as to why he was driving. Right before we see KITT's first test, he seems to be fully, if not mostly, repaired. So it seems kind of weird they seem to be doing it again later, especially if they'd established it's not a mechanical issue. And Michael also said he wanted KITT to run the test over and over until he got it perfect. Therefore, I think everything that happened to KITT before his next test was to boost his confidence. You know what I mean? They knew KITT was afraid, so they thought he'd be less scared if he was maybe doing it with Michael and even paint in his old paint job again. And it's also never addressed to KITT that it was obvious what was wrong with him until Michael gives him the pep talk. Long story short, I feel like that Junkyard Dog is a really special episode because KITT feels more human here than I feel like he does any other episode. If you really wanted to, you could have easily switched out KITT with a human, and it still would have been an amazing story. And that is a pretty big deal. If you're going for a character that's not human but supposed to feel human, Junkyard Dog was one of the most perfect ways to approach that. Okay, so in last place we have Lost Knight. In fourth place we have Chariot of Gold. In third we have Soul Survivor. In second we have Killer KITT. And first by a mile, Junkyard Dog. But these are all just my opinions, of course, and feel free to disagree with me and even share your own favorite KITT episode in the comments. And so, with that, it's been real, and I'll see you next time, y'all skis.